Our memory verse for the month of November is Ezra chapter 3, verse 11. And they sang together by course in praising and giving thanks unto the Lord, because he is good, for his mercy endureth forever toward Israel. And all the people shouted with a great shout when they praised the Lord, because the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid. Our November Crisis Center needs are canned goods, peanut butter, and jelly. We want to encourage you to continue to bring canned goods. We started to get a pretty good bit back there, it looks like. I got a few canned goods back there, and I want to encourage you to bring more of those. I do want to encourage you to bring peanut butter and jelly to the Clemson Carolina Challenge. If you're a Carolina fan, bring jelly, and they are ahead so far, 32 to Clemson's peanut butter at 16. And so I do want to encourage you to continue to bring in your peanut butter and jelly. The Crisis Center will be the real winner, and it is a great opportunity, the Crisis Center, to help those in need and also share the gospel of Jesus Christ with those people who come in for help. And so I just want to encourage you to give as you can to the Crisis Center.
I'm sorry, I took 3 bags of groceries up there yesterday from us. They were given to me and they said, let it be from y'all. So
Okay.
I just got rid of them.
All right.
They were with me when I went up there, so I got rid of them.
No problem.
And I took mine, I don't count them. I figure it's easy to do. Take them up there instead of bringing them and so mine's up there, but I always fill them from
Well, just keep account of what you take up there and let me know.
Well, mine was
I
everything.
took,
So,
I took 18.
okay, remind me after the service. So we can write that down. Let's see. Women's Bible study is every Tuesday at 10 a.m. And brunch is included with that, but there will be no women's Bible study on November the 23rd, which is next Tuesday. All right? So next Tuesday is November 23rd, and we'll have our beans and greens service that night at 6:30. And so bring your favorite whatever. It doesn't have to be beans, and it doesn't have to be greens, okay? You just bring whatever, and we'll have a time of fellowship and food, and we'll have a devotion time where we thank God for the blessings that he pours out upon us all the time, for he truly is good to us all the time. And so we'll have a little time, and I just invite somebody to come with you too. It's a great opportunity to get together and fellowship and worship the Lord. And so I just, invite friends, family, whoever. Prisoner packets, $5 will provide 1 packet to a prisoner in need. I think we're up to 24, so six more packages will meet our goal of 30, and so that would be 6 times 5 is $30. So $30 would help us to meet our goal of 30 prisoner packets. And so if the Lord is leading you to give in that particular way, I do really want to encourage you to do that. $5 by prisoner packet. But we got to have the money by this Sunday, so Sylvia can put it all together and get it to the place, because it's got to be there at a certain period of time so it can be distributed. So I do want to encourage you to do that. If you haven't given to that yet, please consider that. November 28th, we will partake of the Lord's Supper after the morning worship service. December the 1st will be our missions night led by the Brotherhood. December the 5th, we'll have deacons meeting at 5:30. December the 5th is also the Children and Youth Happy Birthday Jesus celebration. And we'll have lunch after the morning worship service for the children and the youth and their families. And so if your children and youth, mark your calendar for that. And then December the 14th, we have the Overcomer Senior Supper at 6. R12 is invited, so pretty much everybody's invited. Everyone is asked to bring finger foods and a gift. The cost about $5, and it'll be exchanged.
The prisoner packets are finished.
Okay.
Yeah, we got the money.
And the gifts will be exchanged randomly. So if you have any questions about any of that, just see Faye, and she'll be glad to clarify any miscommunication I just made. December 19th, we have our Happy Birthday Jesus celebration. I do want to encourage you to come to that, and I do want to encourage you to invite some people to that too. I had some students threaten me that they were coming that day because I said we'd feed them lunch. So we'll see if they show up or not. But Happy Birthday Jesus celebration. We'll have lunch after the morning worship service. So bring your favorite sides and desserts and the tea, the drinks, and the the meat will be provided, and we will not have evening services that evening. And please don't forget about preborn.org as well. Our goal is $100 a month, and they do a phenomenal job of saving babies, unborn, preborn babies, and also sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I tell you, that is a United States mission right there within itself. I mean, babies being saved, their physical lives being saved, and their parents' lives being saved with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so I really want to encourage you to give to that as the Lord leads. And finally, our quote for the month is by R.C. Sproul. A true understanding of grace, of God's unmerited favor, always provokes a life of gratitude and obedience. So if you would, take your copy of God's Word and go ahead and open to the book of Exodus. So tonight, last time we finished up the book of Genesis, the overview, our kind of overview of the book of Genesis. And so tonight we're going to begin looking at the overview of the book of Exodus. And what I really want to encourage you to do is as we go through this Bible study, this kind of overview of the book of Exodus, I really want to encourage you to take the next week or 2 or 3 weeks, however long you need, and read through the book of Exodus a couple of times. You know, read through it and see what's here. Because I'll tell you what, I didn't write everything down. Okay? So I'll guarantee you that as you read through the book of Exodus for yourself, you're going to say, you know, preacher should have wrote that down too. We should have put that in the packet too. Okay? But I really want to encourage you to read it. Because like I said, part of this is to give us a greater understanding of the books of the Bible, but it is also to encourage us and motivate us to read and study God's Word. And I hope as we went through the book of Genesis, that was encouraging to you. Maybe you learned some stuff maybe you didn't know, or maybe it was just a good refresher, so to speak. But I think we covered quite a bit in there, even though we didn't cover everything, of course. And so tonight we're going to begin looking at the book of Exodus. And so what we see is that Exodus is derived from the Greek word exodos, which means to exit, or it means departure. And this is exactly what the book of Exodus is about. It is the children of Israel exiting Egypt and getting ready to enter into the promised land. And so the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament, uses the term exodos in Exodus 19, verse 1. And if you want to flip to Exodus 19:1, I'll read that verse. But Exodus 19, verse 1, this is where they're at Mount Sinai, the Israelites. And it says in 19, verse 1, in the 3rd month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. And so where it says, we're gone forth out, in the Greek, in the Septuagint, that would be where exodos is used. Where they exited, where they departed the land of Egypt. And so as we think about the book of Exodus, it is about the exiting. It is about the departure of the Israelites out of Egypt. And it's not just that they left. The book of Exodus is God's great deliverance in the Old Testament. It is the greatest act of deliverance that we see in the Old Testament. It's why there's so much time spent among the Jews celebrating Passover. And they celebrate Moses. And they celebrate what God did. And so it is the deliverance of Israel out of the bondage, out of slavery in Egypt. It is the great redemptive act of God in the Old Testament. And it is the birth of the nation of Israel out of the womb of Egypt. The nation of Israel leaves Egypt, the womb, and crosses the Red Sea. You can think of that like the birth canal. And they are birthed out. And I want you to think about it. This picture of delivery, this picture of birth. What do we see? We see Abraham, right? And then Abraham's seed, Jacob and his family move to Egypt, and there they grow into the great nation. What was originally just a family, Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac. And then Isaac becomes an extended family with Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob and Esau. And then a bigger family with Jacob and his wife Leah and Rachel. His wife Leah and Rachel, and they're all their kids. They're 12 kids. And then they all move, those who were alive, all move to Egypt. And there they grow. And there they multiply greatly. And they go from a family to a clan to a nation that doesn't have a home. To a nation who actually does have a home. They just haven't got there yet. And they hadn't seen it yet. And this is exactly how we Christians are. We're in the land of Egypt, waiting to go home to the promised land of heaven itself. And this is a picture of who we are, you see. And we wander. We're pilgrims in this land. That's what Peter tells us. I think it's 2 Peter. But we're wanderers. It might be 1 Peter, so don't hold me to that. It's 1 or 2 Peter. But we're exiles. We're wanderers. We're strangers in a strange land. Ready to reach the home we've never seen. But boy, we sure have heard about it. And we sure have sung about it. And we sure have an imagination about it. And when we see it for real with our own two eyes, it'll be greater than anything we ever imagined. And it'll be greater than anything we ever sung about. It'll be a wonderful, wonderful place. And so what we see is that this is what Exodus is about. And I want to understand that Exodus does provide the basis for Israel's self-identity. It is coming out of Egypt and going to what God had promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to the promised land. And it becomes their national identity. It's just like for us as Americans, the Revolutionary War and the U.S. Constitution form our national identity. For the Jews, that same thing is the deliverance. It is the Exodus out of Egypt, led by Moses, the 10 plagues, the Passover, the 10 commandments given to them at Mount Sinai. This is the self-identity for Israel. This is where they develop as a nation. The author of the book of Exodus is Moses. And like we said before, Moses is given credit for writing the first 5 books of the Old Testament. The date of the writing is between 1440 to 1406 BC. Kind of give you an idea. At least that's what I found around 1440, 1406 BC. It is the second book in the Old Testament. It's the second book in the Pentateuch, which is the Law of Moses. It is the second book in the Bible. And so the theme of Exodus is that God delivers his chosen people, the Israelites, from their bondage in Egypt, and he makes them his own treasured possession. And if you're still there in Exodus 19, look at verse 5. Notice what it says there. It says in Exodus 19:5, "Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine." And as I read that verse, I can't help but think about what Peter calls us, what Peter says about us, that we are a peculiar people, called by God, called by Christ, to do what God has called us to do. And this is exactly what this is. And so, if you obey my voice, indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people. For all the earth is mine, saith the Lord. But you'll be special. You'll be set apart. You'll be sanctified. And this is exactly a type, it's a picture of the Christian church today. And so, this is what we see. That the Israelites become the treasured possession of the Lord. And so what is the purpose of Exodus then? Well, the purpose of Exodus is to continue the salvation history by showing how God is fulfilling his promise to Abraham. So in Genesis chapters 1 through 11, we kind of have the setup of the whole world. It's the creation of the universe and everything in it. We get sin, we get the flood, we get the Tower of Babel, and people spread all over the place, and we get all that. And then in chapter 12 of Genesis, we get Abraham. And so God promises Abram, do what I tell you to, go to the land, pick up your stuff, get out of your family's country, and go to the land that I'm going to show you, and I'm going to make you blessed among all the world. Those who bless you will be blessed, and those who curse you will be cursed. And I will make you a great nation, that your descendants will be more numerous than the stars in the sky and the sands at the beach. There'll be too many to count. And so God has made this covenant with Abraham. And here in Exodus, what do we see? We see the Israelites. They are in a land that surrounds them. They're in a foreign nation ruled by foreign people who hate them and hate their God, who has enslaved them and put them in chains. And so this is what we see. And so what we see in Exodus, what's the purpose? It is to show that God is still working even when the Israelites are wondering, Lord, where are you? And they're crying out to God, help us, we're in slavery, we're being oppressed. And the Pharaoh has made it even harder for us to exist. And God hears their cries. And it says he remembers the covenant he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's not that God needed to be reminded of it, but it is in his time. And so when the right time came, God will deliver. But it is the continuation of salvation history. And Exodus stands as an eternal testimony to the nature and works of God. It is who he is. In Exodus, we see who God is, and we see what he does for this development of the nation of Israel. We see God's attributes of holiness. We see his power, his justice, his truth, his mercy, and his glory. And we see repeated evidence of God's faithfulness and his promises being not only restated, but also being fulfilled time and time again. We see that, and here's the thing, after more than 400 years and many years of slavery, God will deliver his people. Now I want you to think about that for a minute. Joseph brings the entire family to Egypt. More than 400 years later, they're enslaved, they're trapped, and they're kind of wondering, Lord, when will you deliver us from this oppression? Lord, when will you deliver us from the bondage of slavery, this hard labor, this bitterness that we feel, this sadness where Pharaoh wants to kill our children, kill our sons, and take all of our women unto himself. Lord, when will you deliver us from this? When will we receive what you have promised to our fathers before us, to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob? When will we receive those things? And they're crying out unto the Lord. 400 years go by. Now, not all of those 400 years were bad years. But as we get further and further away from Joseph, they get worse and worse and worse. And what it brings to my mind is Malachi, between Malachi and John the Baptist. Malachi and Jesus. We have the 400 years of silence, you see. So we have 400 years between, let's just say, Joseph and his family and Moses. And then we have 400 years between Malachi and Jesus. Those 400 years of silence where the Jews are crying out, Lord, when will you send the Messiah? Lord, when is he coming? And they receive no answer. Lord, when will you deliver us from the oppression of these Romans? For they are vile and disgusting. They are pagan through and through. And they blaspheme your name at every opportunity. When will we be delivered? And we see this waiting, in Exodus, and we see it. after Malachi. One of the things that we need to understand about the book of Exodus, and I think this will come through as you begin to read it, starting with chapter 1. But God is forming the nation of Israel. But he's got to show them who he is. They need to know who he is. Remember, there's been 400 years since God's primarily spoken to any of these. The Israelite population has grown exceedingly, but where is Joseph? Where is Jacob, you see? And so this is this issue. And so God, and we see this, he's revealing himself time and time again. And you get that key verse where Moses is standing before the burning bush, and Moses asks him, who do I say sends me? How will the people know who you are? And God responds, Yahweh. You tell them I am Yahweh. I am that I am. You tell them I am has sent you. You tell them Yahweh has sent you. And you think about the beauty of that verse as Moses is bowed down before God as the bush is burning and the glory of the Lord is shining all around. And then you think about Jesus as you read through the book of John. And what does he say? I am the bread of life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. You see, Yahweh. And every Jew understood exactly what he was saying when he said, I am the good shepherd. They knew he was claiming to be God. That's what they knew. All right? Jesus didn't hide it. He was telling everybody exactly who he is. And so as we look through here, there are a lot of key verses that I put here. Just kind of moving through. And I do really want to encourage you to take a look at some of these verses or pay attention to some of these verses as you read through the book of Exodus this week and next week and the weeks to come. And then you get to, I did at least tell you what the Ten Commandments was there in Exodus chapter 20, so if you didn't know that already. But I do really want to encourage you to, as you read through, just kind of keep this sheet with you. But let's look at the brief outline of the book of Exodus. A brief outline of the book of Exodus. And I give you 2 or 3 of these because there's kind of different ways of looking at this. But I think you're going to see a very similar pattern as you read through the book of Exodus. It's going to start out with deliverance. You're going to start out with Exodus chapter 1. And you'll read through chapter 18. And you'll have bondage and oppression, and then you'll have deliverance and provision. And this is what we see, and I've got it broken down for you. And then you have the worship, which is the law, the tabernacle blueprints, idolatry, and the tabernacle construction. Now, that's basically taking the book of Exodus and breaking it down into 2 big headings with some small subdivisions under each one. If you look at the next brief outline that's there, we break it up into 3 sections. We have Israel under bondage in Egypt, which we have the slavery, the subheading, the slavery of Israel in chapter 1. Then we have the rise of a deliverer in chapters 2 through 4. And then we have Moses' struggle with Pharaoh after that, which is chapter 5 through chapter 12 of the book of Exodus. And that's where you'll find the 10 plagues and all of that stuff, Passover. And then the second part is the Exodus from Egypt. And so we see the first subheading, leaving Egypt, then crossing the Red Sea, and then the journey to Sinai. And then the third division would be Israel's experience in the wilderness. And so you have 2 subdivisions there that God gives the law at Mount Sinai, so the giving of the 10 Commandments. And then you have the building of the tabernacle, which will become the foundation of the temple, both being a type of Jesus Christ. Okay? And so this is what we tend to see. So if we look at the overview of the book of Exodus, the book of Exodus deals with 8 principal subjects. Okay? So there are 8 kind of big subdivisions. 8 subjects that the book of Exodus deals with. The first is bondage. I think we understand this. They're in slavery in Egypt. The second one is the birth of Moses. And so we see the birth of Moses, and you're probably very familiar with that account there, where he's born. Of course, Pharaoh said, you kill all the kids, kill all the babies, and all that stuff. And the midwives refused to do it. And so we have to hide the babies because Egyptian soldiers are coming around. And so they build an ark, is what it's called in the King James. And they put Moses in the ark. And then his sister puts him in the river and watches him while he's there in the river. And so we see that. You're familiar with that. And of course, Pharaoh's daughter comes and fishes him out and adopts him as her own. I sometimes wonder if Moses, because it says that she named him Moses, I wonder if the Bible tells us what Moses' Hebrew name was. I wonder if it was Moses too. I don't think it was, but maybe. Then we have the 10 plagues. We have the 10 plagues, chapter 7 through 11. And then we have Passover. And of course, Passover is a plague within itself, but it starts with chapter 12. And it is chapter 12. And so we have Passover. We're going to kind of come back and we'll look at that next time or time after. Then we have the Red Sea, the crossing of the Red Sea. An incredible story of deliverance there. God is continuing to deliver. And yet the people are continuing to grumble and complain. And they have very little faith. And then we have the wilderness. They move into the wilderness. And then we have Sinai. And so they're in the Sinai Peninsula. And they get the law. They get the tabernacle. There's idolatry. And then they construct the tabernacle. They get the blueprints for the tabernacle, and then there's the construction. And so this kind of gives you a brief overview. So as you begin to start reading the book of Exodus, as you begin reading that, I really want to encourage you to do that. Because it's an incredibly important book, and they're all important, I know, but it is an incredible historical book, but it begins to lay the foundation of the law. And we have the 10 Commandments. And we see God's incredible deliverance. And think about this. If Israel was a picture of us, and they were delivered out of Egypt, and Egypt is a type of sin, okay? Jesus is our deliverer. He's our Moses, who delivers us, we're like Israel, from the bondage of Satan, the bondage of sin, which would be a picture of Egypt. And so this is, we see this is the theme running through this picture of deliverance. And I really want you to think about that as you begin to read through this, especially as you read all the way up to the crossing of the Red Sea. You know, as you begin to read up to that, up to chapter 13, 14, somewhere in there. And so, and think about that. And then as you move into the wilderness, it does get a little harder to read towards the end as they begin to put they get the tabernacle blueprint and they begin to put it together. For some people, it becomes a little bit more burdensome to read. The beginning should be very easy. It's this great historical narrative that's set in the book of Exodus. And it starts off, I mean, if you read the last 2, 4, 5 verses of Genesis, and then start right in with Exodus chapter 1, verse 1, it's as if nothing has changed. It's boom, one sentence right to the next. It just follows suit perfectly. There's 400 years difference, but it just follows suit. It's just absolutely perfection. And so I do really want to encourage you. So next time, we will pick up with the brief summary, and we'll kind of do a brief summary over the book of Exodus, and we'll kind of start with the Genesis chapter 50, verse 22, kind of with the death of Joseph, and then we will proceed to move through Exodus chapter 1 and so on. So we'll pick up there next time. So let's close in prayer tonight.